in the audience, Perla?
I work with him, yeah.
Oh,
He's going to hear about my whole
fan
life.
guys. And can I just say thank you, guys in the audience. This is what we need.
We need some allies.
Yeah. It's
Oh.
not all about us. I mean, it is all about us women. But we do need men here to advocate us as well. Right, I'm going to put my bits on the floor. Hello, everyone. So if you've not met me before, my name's Katie Street. I am one of the co-hosts of the Female Leaders Bar. I am also a founder of a marketing agency myself. And I feel very lucky to have the fantastic Perla here because I've actually already interviewed her for my podcast and she's fucking amazing.
Shameless podcast link.
Yeah, I know, yeah. Go and search my podcast. So, Perla, we are here. In fact, we did kind of talk about this stuff on the podcast before I start to grill you and be really mean and ask all the tough questions. Can you tell me a bit about you? Tell us a little bit about you, your career, and what you're doing today.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Perla Bloom. I currently work at EA Games as a connections planning lead. Very weird title. And what it actually means is I mix kind of media and creative. So I make sure that the right people see the right message at the right time. It's all that lovely stuff with ecosystems and creativity. But to get there, I actually started in creative. And it was an absolute accident that I even got any media experience. I actually got made redundant during COVID, which was an absolute setback. Honestly, somebody like me as well. I was just like, as in somebody who doesn't deal that well with rejection. I got better at it after that. And I just kind of picked myself up. It was the only opportunity I could get, putting it really plainly at that time at COVID. And I was shit scared because I had no media experience. So I went in there for a year and I just soaked up everything that I possibly could. And I've never been happier to get that experience because if I hadn't, I just wouldn't be working at EA now. My manager found me on LinkedIn and he said, you've got a really, unique experience because you've got creative and media and it's quite a rare thing to have in the industry. I don't know why, it really shouldn't. People should understand both. But yeah, that's how I ended up where I am today. So now I've got a role that's really media and creative focused because I can play a part in both worlds and connect everything together.
And talking about worlds, the game that Perla is basically running the strategy for is The Sims. Hands up if you played The Sims? No? I mean, it was such a big part of my childhood. Yeah, such a cool game. So tell us what, day to day, what does your role look like now?
Well, that is a really hard one to answer. That's what I love about my job. Well, even to get there, can I just say, so I worked at EA for 2 years before I worked on The Sims. I was working on games like Battlefield, which is our COD, don't tell them I said that, and also other games like EA Originals. And I kind of I wasn't planning I really want to get onto The Sims, but naturally there's a really amazing female leader on there, Julia Victor, who I really wanted to get connected with. So I asked my manager if they would introduce me to her, and she was actually my mentor for 2 years before I got moved onto The Sims. And then when they were looking for a connections planner on The Sims, she said, I want Perla. And that's just something I did through connecting. And I think that's a really important thing because the statistic in the UK is actually women are 27% less likely to have a network than men are. So it's really important, not to put the onus on women, but if you are a leader, to create a space for women to get mentors and female mentors that are in the positions that they want to be in. So I really recommend that. Back to the actual question, a day in the life of my job, it can vary. I start late because I work with LA now, so I'm gymming until 10, living the high life, and then I'm working till about 8:30, 9 o'clock p.m. So that's where my meetings are, and I'm doing everything coming into different meetings. So I think that's the thing that's quite special about my job. It's quite entrepreneurial. I get to go into different meetings and see where I can add value and where they need a holistic connections view, and also where they're not kind of laddering up to the brand identity. So it's I come in and do that as more of an external player, but also as a partner for the brand team too.
Amazing. I mean, what a role. And the diversity and the free. I think there's so much to be said with for businesses, and certainly larger businesses, to give you the freedom to be entrepreneurial, whether you're a man or a woman or whatever. I think definitely times are changing, and businesses are realising that they need to structure things differently.
Especially on The Sims. The Sims is a game about discovering your identity, and we have loads of LGBTQ plus members who play The Sims. You know, it's like a real responsibility. I still think we need to do more about, you know, there are only white faces really on The Sims, and I think that there needs to be more diversity. Yes, there are women, but I think we could go one step further, to be honest.
Yeah, well, there we go. I'm going to keep my eyes out for that, because I know with you being there, that is going to happen.
I'll try.
So, for me, and I've interviewed actually she was ex-head of marketing at Game. The gaming industry does feel like quite a male-dominated one. I guess there are more, let's be honest, male gamers than there probably are female.
Not true.
Okay, go on then. Tell me.
There are 50% of gamers are women.
Really?
You just think that because the male side are more vocal, especially on games like COD and all the rest of it, because they get to scream profanities at women on there. So the space isn't that welcoming for women, but there are 100% women gamers. But it's funny, it's interesting that you've said that, because I'm sure a lot of you thought that too.
Yeah.
No, simply not true.
No, and I know, I feel like I'm being really sexist here now.
No, not at all.
But in my head, us women, like, we use more games on our phones, and guys do.
That's actually
like,
true
proper
as well.
Gaming. Yeah, I was going to say, I'm sure I have seen that somewhere, so hopefully.
But it's interesting you say proper gaming.
Yeah. Yes.
Another one. What
See,
is proper gaming?
I'm saying the things that I should not be saying. I know. I know, yeah. No, but that's what, do you know what? That's such an important thing, is language. And you know, man, woman, whatever, like, the things we say, like me just saying that was totally wrong. So they're a good example of how to do it wrong, guys. But, you know, how we position things, how we say things, without even realising, you know, this is a heritage of hundreds, tens of years of us learning.
Misogynistic thoughts. It's internalised misogyny.
Yeah,
I have
it's
to call
not
myself
real
out
gaming.
too.
Of course it's bloody real gaming. Like, what the hell? So less of that. There we go. Lesson. That was a practical lesson. Think about what you're saying before you say it. I definitely need to learn that one. So you touched on there something really interesting, I think, about how the gaming world isn't particularly welcoming for women. What do you think can be done to get, I guess, let's first off talk about how we can make the gaming world more welcoming. Are there things that EA Games are doing, that you're involved with, that are helping?
Yeah, I mean, like, this is me kind of shouting out EA Games and what they're doing. We have something called the ping system, which is a completely new communication system. I know, so on COD, what you can do is, you know, you're on the mic and you're communicating with people. On Battlefield and on Apex now, which is another first-person shooter game, you basically ping without having to communicate, which is really minimizing, obviously, the abuse. But that's also quite sad in my mind that we've had to do that to minimize the abuse. The problem starts at the beginning, I guess. So the reason I took the job at EA Games, because I was, again, shit scared, because I'm not a huge gamer, and I thought that, like, I was completely out of my depth, but I was wrong, which is great. The thing about what I wanted to do in marketing was make our games seem kind of more welcoming to women at the start, so we have more females at the start. So I worked on Battlefield for 2 years, which again is a first-person shooter game. You know, I really called them out on things like, you know, characters within the game and how they were presented. Do we have women? Do we have non-binary? Do we have representation in all of those ways? So I was able to actually comment on the product itself, but then when it comes to the marketing, as to like the creators we chose, the messaging we put out. So I think that I definitely have a part to play, and people that are in marketing have a part to play, because we're the ones selling the product that will get them within these communities at the start anyway, and we wouldn't have to put in things in place like, you know, the ping system for people to communicate. So it's a long way away, but hopefully we're kind of starting those strides towards something like that.
Do you think, so obviously you're a female and you get it because you're a woman, so you're thinking about it in the right way, and I guess if you've got a guy that's kind of leading those strategies, do you think that they can even think like that to develop? I don't know. I mean, hopefully today,
it's a hard one.
You guys listening in, there's 3 guys in the audience, yes. You know, this could be something that you know starts to make you more aware. But unless you are a woman, or unless you're in the LGBTQ community, you don't think like them. You don't know what they know. So how can guys, I guess,
I think
help?
speak to your female colleagues, you know, ask them, pass something through. We've also got different, what we call kind of business organizations who specialize in that. I'm in Women's Ultimate Team. So if you think something might be a bit iffy, or you're like, you know, will that be appreciated by this kind of minority community? You know, you can go and ask them. I think just ask. I think we need to also open like an environment where it's easy, it's acceptable to ask, because I do think that sometimes we've gone away where it's kind of, you're trying to be self-righteous in what you know versus a healthy conversation. Just like earlier when I just said, hey Katie, mobile gaming is gaming, you know, I'm not offended by it, and I don't blame you for thinking that, because I've also previously thought that. So just opening kind of a space for people to ask is just the best thing to do, and then I think we'll get more male allies rather than assuming things all the time and getting it wrong.
Yeah, it's so hard, isn't it? And but it does feel hard to ask the questions sometimes. Like, I've got a lot of gay best friends, and you know, who are guys, and the stuff like I feel, because they're my friends, I feel that I can ask them stuff like, because it feels awkward to ask the question sometimes, like, how should I position this, or you know, if I want to.
It shouldn't be awkward.
It shouldn't, but
100%.
and that's the thing. I think a lot of what I've spoken about this week with all the amazing women that I've been able to interview has been about being brave, and sometimes that is just asking a question and being inclusive and asking for someone else's opinion.
Yeah, literally that. I think I'm always open for people to ask me things. It's like, there's no such thing as a stupid question. I mean, obviously there's a way you can ask it, but it's better to look stupid when you're asking a question than when the campaign's out there for the world to see and you're getting really bad publicity.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, ask first.
Yes.
So let's go back to specifically you. We've talked about gaming and what's going on in that world. You've done incredibly well with your career personally. Have there been any mentors that you've looked up to, people that have inspired you along your journey?
Yeah, I've been really, really lucky. Both with the women that I've come into contact with who've have become my mentors, but also the allies who have that open dialogue with me, like I was talking about now. So I'll start at the start of my career. Ali Waring was like my first mentor. That was when I got into creative strategy. She really showed me what it was to be headstrong and strong, but also really empathetic and soft, because that's something I really struggled with. I was kind of a binary. I was either like rah, 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 or I was like really soft. So she kind of coached me through that without even realizing, I don't think. And then as I've got in my career, like through my career, you know, I've asked for these different mentors, and they're all women that just lead with such empathy. And they always make time for me, little old me, when I was going up the ranks, and giving me opportunities. And I really think that's important. And that's something that's really helped me, is having that team of sponsors, like having those sponsors, having that representation in those bigger meetings with those senior people. Oh, well, Perla's done this, or, you know, they've done that, or I think they'd be really interested in doing this. It opens up opportunities without you even realizing, and also gives you the advice, kind of guide you through. And then more recently, my manager, Robbie McCauley, shout out, he's not here, but there you go, shout out anyway. He's a really good ally. Like, he doesn't always, you know, see things that are sexist straight away, but he's always got an open ear to when I call out microaggressions, and he's always kind of listening. He doesn't just brush them off like, oh, you're being silly, which I think you can get a lot of the time. And it's not always men's fault. It's just because they're not in that position sometimes, so they don't see it like you are seeing it through your lens. But he's always been open to the things that I say to him, which has been very much appreciated and has really helped me when I've been at EA. So yeah.
Love that. I mean, you have done so well with your career. You also have your own podcast.
I do.
And just so, doesn't everyone just think Perla just speaks so beautifully? Like, she comes across so well. What has helped you outside of your mentors with your confidence? Like, because you are incredibly brave, and you're not afraid to stand up for what you think. And you're doing some great things, you know, on the podcast, but also independently in your role. What gives you the bravery to challenge and to, you know, to be as confident as you are?
I think 3 things. Number 1, I'm a theatre kid. Like, I am. I used to do musical theatre. I was a really shy kid, but then I would like sing and dance on stage and then just come off stage like, oh my God, don't look at me. But it really helped me public speak. I accept opportunities and then I think later. again, like 2 years ago, I would never have been able to do something like this or speak in public or had the confidence to do something like that. But I always accept the opportunity and then I worry later. I've already done it, I have to do it. And I just push myself to do it. And also, my third one is probably kind of getting rid of that fear and embarrassment of failure. Like, I fail all the time, like all the time. There are things that I'm so embarrassed about that I can't even think about it really. But I try really hard to just push past the fear of being embarrassed. Like, I will get embarrassed and I will get it wrong sometimes. So I think being made redundant actually really helped me with that. Like, it was like probably the most embarrassing, not that it is embarrassing to get made redundant, but I felt quite embarrassed at the time. So it was probably like the worst embarrassment I had felt career-wise for a long time, because I'd only just got that job like 5 months before. So I was just like, I'd put it on LinkedIn. It's like, God, I have to take that. That's embarrassing. So I'd like, now I've gone through like that lever of embarrassment. Nothing can really embarrass me that much anymore.
Yeah, but it's so true, isn't it? I talk about this a lot, so apologies to anyone who has already heard me talk about this, but how the shit times or the hard times or the things that embarrass you, whatever it might be, are the things actually that make you grow the most. So when you're in those, it's really good to remind yourself that I'm going to learn so much more from this than I probably will all of my successes put together, and you do come out stronger.
Sure.
One tip for our amazing audience on something that they could go back and implement, either within their business or a behavioural thing that they could be doing themselves that will help equal the balance.
Pass the mic. This is one. It's not my personal that's not an expression I've stolen, but it's a really, really useful one. I've been in a lot of meetings personally where there are a lot of men that are speaking a lot of buzzwords and not shutting up for a person to interject. Like, I just have, and it's intimidating, especially when you're on Zoom. So if you notice that there is someone on the call you're on a call for a reason, you're there to add value. So if you notice that somebody hasn't said anything and you know that they've got they would have an opinion on that, create the space, especially if you're more senior, for them to speak. And also, if a man repeats somebody's point, a woman's point louder, kind of direct the mic back to the person who made the original point. It can be really disheartening when that happens to you. And it's not fair. So just say, oh, that's a really good point. Okay, I know you said that earlier, so why don't you elaborate on what you meant before? So pass the mic. Don't be scared to pass the mic.
Love that. What a way to end. Perla, thank you so much. I could ask you so much more, but I think I'm well over time. So yeah, huge thank you to Perla.
Thank you.
I was going to say as well, pass the mic, drop the mic. That was incredible. Thank you, Katie, and thank you, Perla. Katie's going to be back on for the final session after me, I think, my darling. I think when we're done. If they're here, we caveat that. So I'm going to stay seated because we're actually going to go straight into our next session. We'll just let everybody get a seat at the front here, and then we're going to go live with Melissa.
No, so do you.
Just wait for everyone to grab their seats.
Yeah, the most amount of confidence, just the best.
Oh, thank you. I'm excited to see that.
Perfect. Here we go. We've got some more coming in. Wonderful, wonderful. Everybody okay? Everybody okay? Hello. Wonderful, wonderful. Do join. Come on down. We'll make sure we're on time. Okay, cool. Perfect. Welcome, men, to the female leaders stage. We love men at this stage. Perfect, perfect. Just wait for a few more that are coming over here. Wonderful. Grab us some seats here. Do join. Wonderful. Let's get cracking because we're going from one session to another. I've got to be honest, this is my final session of the 3 days. It's been my absolute honour to be emceeing the Female Leaders stage. For those who don't know, we only set this up. We spoke to Dan and Luke just 6 weeks ago, was when we were given the brief, would you like to host the Female Leader Stage? Would you like to bring together some incredible female voices? Yes, we would, and yes, we can, and we have. So I'm delighted that my final session to MC today is the amazing Melissa Desmond from Nectar 360. Give a round of applause.
Thank you, Julia.
Thank you, Melissa. So, Melissa, start first with your story, how you got to become business director at Nectar 360. Sort of a little nutshell for everybody.
Little nutshell. So I've actually been with Nectar for 10 years, which I
Wow.
have to say is an incredibly supportive and amazing organisation where people are allowed to be individuals and they're allowed to play to their strengths, and I think that's why it's somewhere that I found it very easy to slip into a leadership role, to be honest, because I was allowed to be myself and be true to myself.
10 years, Nectar 360
Yes.
must be doing something right. Tell me then, I mean, there's a lot of people, we work with closely with you
Yes.
all. There's a lot of people that have got 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. What's their secret sauce? What's the reason people stay?
I mean, I think everyone will say, and everyone will say this about a company they work for, it's in the people. You know, you work with people all day long, and what we do, we're talking to people all day long. If you like those people, if you appreciate those people for, you know, who they are, whatever differences they are, and you learn and grow from them, you're going to stick around, and you stick around through the negative times and the tough times because you band together and you think, this is how we're going to do it.
Got this, yeah.
We've got this. And then in the good times, you will have a little bit of a party.
Then you're an amazing time. This is really interesting because I've spent 3 days talking about how to be a leader. And what we haven't talked about is what the fudge happens after that and what you actually do in order to lead. You run quite a big team, the business development
Yes.
team. How do you lead? What should you do and what shouldn't you do?
Well, I think no matter how many people you have in your team, you need to never stop investing in your team. You know, as leaders and the bigger the team is, it can be very easy to try and put people in little boxes due to their performance, and no one wants to be in a box. You can't do that. You have to understand what makes each individual tick, and therefore what's the strategies to get that individual to do the best job they possibly can do. And then also there's, you know, what else is happening in that individual's life, whether or not it's good or bad, if there's something going on, you know, what makes that person them, and therefore what could be possibly holding them back, which, you know, everyone's got times in their careers where they might hold themselves back, they're not feeling confident, they're not feeling like they want to push themselves forward. As a leader, you have to know that. You have to be able to adapt the role and the needs to be able to make sure that they're still performing and that they're still happy, and that when the time comes, they're getting to the biggest potential that they can have.
So practically, is that simply asking the question, how are you? I know my team here, some of my team here, they do a vibe check every day. What's your vibe? What's the 3 words to describe? I love their vibe check. It's amazing. But is it that? Is it asking the question, or does it go deeper than that?
I mean, it definitely starts with asking the question. But I think it's also recognizing that not everybody will speak up straight away. So it's about an individual approach for every member of your team, and also encouraging every member of your team, you know, the managers at every single level, to be having those honest conversations and be really sort of pushing. If, you know, not everyone wants to open up, and that's fine, but at the same time, you need to be able to tailor what you're doing based on, you know, what that person might need at that time and that point.
So this is interesting because I'm always talking to people about trying to get companies to understand how to make people thrive, not just survive, thrive within those. Are there any steps that maybe Nectar 360 has taken to go to implement, or just from your perspective, Melissa, of going, this is what's worked?
So I guess what's worked is it's taking time, and it's also really encouraging people to that asking the question and opening up. It's not a bad thing. It's not a negative thing. It shows strengths. It's better to ask someone how they are. Okay, they don't want to talk about it, but that's fine. You've still shown that you cared. You might not always get the result that you want, but that's okay. Keep trying, keep doing it, and keep finding your own individual style for it, which I think is really important. I know years ago when I'd see female leaders and they'd almost like put on their big shoulder pads and they'd stomp about and they'd
Still got them.
I mean, sorry, but that's okay if that's you. But actually, if it's not, you know, if you don't have to be aggressive, to be assertive if you're not that type of person. And I think people will always see when you're putting on a jacket that's not you and trying to behave in a way that's not you. You have to stay true to yourself and stand up for yourself in a way that's honest.
I'm going to go with that because I really like this. What makes a terrible leader? What can you do? Because it's going in there being all Billy. I can't say the word. I was going to say something. I'm trying to be polite. I can't even think of a polite way of saying Billy Big Bollocks, so I just say it.
Yeah.
There's no other way of saying it. But where can you go wrong? How do leaders get it so wrong?
I think forgetting about your team. It's very, very easy to, particularly if you're a leader, if you're trying to go somewhere, you're trying to go upwards, yes, you've got to network with the people above you, you've got to network with your peers, but you've got to have that team coming behind you. You know, you've got to have a vision and to be able to lead people and take them on the journey and make them want to come with you, and you can never, ever stop investing in them.
It's really interesting. I've got to ask you, so I'm going to get something different.
Yeah.
So Nectar 360 deals with some of the biggest brands known in the I suppose for all of us that we know and love. You've been at Nectar in this team for 10 years. Have you seen a difference? Are you starting to go into meetings and the decision makers are starting to look a little bit more female, or is there no change?
I actually think with Nectar, we've always been pretty fit. Nectar itself, not necessarily Nectar part of Sainsbury's, but so at Nectar we've always been very female. The clients, some. I think there's been a huge change. I think a huge change throughout my career, which started just a couple of years ago. There's definitely more, but we know, we all know the stats. There's so much more work to be done, and I think it's important for every female, not just leader, but every sort of person in an organization to recognize that to understand what's holding an individual back, and to speak up a little bit and just make it that little bit easier for the next person coming along behind you.
I mean, it was really wonderful that just I interviewed Holly McClellan from Boots just about an hour earlier, and Boots is a very forward-thinking company that really is focused on being inclusive within as a business, and I think it's quite exciting. I think also one of the topics I came up with Holly that I was going to talk to you about is the huge meteoric rise of retail media. But it's not a new thing, but it seems like it is.
Exactly, and I think it's not new. It actually hasn't changed that much, and my personal experience was quite interesting. I came back from maternity leave fairly recently, and I thought, what is everyone talking about? Like, suddenly there was all these different buzzwords.
If you've all sort of heard retail media networks, right? It's bang, everyone's going on about it. But and do you not think it's a little bit like it's a brand new shiny toy? So
exactly. But it's not. But we've been doing this for 15 years, and it's gotten smarter and it's gotten bigger. But I think what's really important is for people to make it that much more simple and more accessible. Because it is something that's been around for a while. But if we overcomplicate it, we're not going to be the big shiny toy in 5 years' time.
It may not be the big shiny toy, but we were talking about it in Cannes, and I think it's the fourth largest area of investment for advertisers, and 121 billion heading into retail media. So it's worth knowing your shit about it. That's all I'll say. I got to ask you as well, because I know we're limited on time, but it's one of the things I'm really fascinated to talk to you about is being a working mum. Now, I've spoken to so many people. I'm also a working mum, and I had my different route and way of doing it, and that's why I set up my own company 11 years ago, so I could make the rules. For you, what's been your experience, good or bad?
Mixed. I think, I'm lucky enough to work for an organization that is very supportive. My individual manager is incredibly supportive, but it is also very hard, and I think there is still a little bit of a cultural shift to happen of if I leave a little bit early, or if I have multiple days off, because my child is sick, because that just happens, my kids are very young, I'm not slacking off. I am getting the work done in whatever way I can, and it's making sure that everybody in the organization knows that. I think it's not enough to just have the great policies that most big companies do have, and most leaders would think that they're being very inclusive, but if you're not leading it by example, if you're not making sure that everyone in the organization understands why we're being inclusive to anyone going through a situation.
And I meant to say actually working parents, not working mums.
Yes.
'Cause I'm really proud, I'm really pleased that the industry is embracing working parents and supporting men as well that want to take time.
But it is still a little bit, my husband works in a slightly different industry, but he's been said, oh, can't your wife take care of the sick child? And he's like, well, we've had to have that awkward conversation about whose day is more important, and I lost today. Like, they're still his kids.
I think that is. I mean, every step and every change, I feel like we're heading in the right direction. It's even like, I'm proud that this year the Female Leaders Bar has been born. I'm proud that I think next year we can go further. We can make more inclusivity. We're making steps in the right direction. So we're going to finish with final one. I'm always about practical tips and getting nuggets of brilliance out your brain, Melissa. Some do's and don'ts for being a great leader. Don't care whether you're male or female or non-binary. Just a great leader. Take us home.
So I think I probably touched on a huge amount of empathy. Don't put people in a box. Don't assume that someone's experience or reaction to a situation is the same as yours, because you've not walked in their shoes. You don't know what might have upset them or caused them stress or panic about that situation. So look and listen and make sure you're bringing everyone with you.
Perfect. So if that's what they need to do, and I'm also then I'm going to make you do one final
Sure.
one, because again, okay, here's what to do. So as a person, I'm standing in front of you. There's people here who want to become a leader. They just need to do what? Finish that sentence. I'm going to become a great leader by
speaking up, speaking your mind, saying it in the room.
Perfect. Then I'm going to finish with be loud, be brave, be bold, and be you. Thank you very much, Melissa Desmond from Nectar 360. Incredible. To everybody here, we have them one final session. If not, it's going to be Katie and me chatting away. Yeah, possibly. Stick around for that final session. And if not, I want to say to everybody who's supported all of the sessions over the last 3 days, the Female Leaders Bar has been born. We'll be back bigger next year. And we're also going to be live into Mexico in Cologne for anybody heading out there in September. Thank you all very much.